Good afternoon. We are live here with B1SUT, Katie Smith, and Mom for Liberty, Roberta Lewis. And I'm going to bring in Katie. Good morning. Afternoon. I keep forgetting.
Good afternoon.
It was quite the long morning for me. So I guess I still haven't transitioned to afternoon.
I understand.
How are you this afternoon?
I'm very good. Listen to your morning podcast. It was interesting. Your open mic morning was a success.
I think it was. I think there are a lot of people who are understand. What did you just tell me about? What should we have named this podcast?
This podcast, we're going to talk about a couple of big stories happening that.
No. I mean, what did you want to call it?
Yes,
is this
instead of the mainstream media is this a great state or what? I wanted to say, is this a corrupt state or what?
All right, I'm bringing on Roberta. I think she's ready. You ready, Roberta?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, good job. Sounds awesome.
Well,
okay, I'm going to pull this out because, Katie, I know you've got some stuff that you want to share, and you and Roberta do. So, and you look awesome too, Roberta. Well done. Okay, so I'm going to kind of turn it over to you, Katie, and you ladies get this going.
Okay. Well, really, I mean, we can pick two major stories, although they definitely, they are separate stories, but a similar theme of corruption in our government at several levels, and they both intersect in Payne County. So we can either start with the story of Ty Burns, or we can start with the grand jury petition that is requesting investigation into DHS and child welfare, the court system, law enforcement, legislators, all of those who are failing to keep kids safe. So
that's just sad. I mean, when you can't even throw a dart at the dartboard and hit a target, good night. Why don't you start with the Ty Burns? Let's start there.
Actually, Roberta has been really steeped in this story, so I'm going to let her do the summary of that.
All right, go, Roberta. You're up.
Awesome. Well, what we have, everybody, I think, was the last 2 weeks has been kind of inundated with the Ty Burns situation. And if you haven't, what we have is we have a sitting House representative who was charged and sentenced for domestic violence. And on the surface, it looks very clear and cut, but of course, with corruption, it's never what it seems. And so we kind of start digging into that. And what I was able to find is that Ty Burns has a history of domestic violence. And so what we know now after his resignation is that Representative Burns had a case in 2023 where one of his children went to an educator at the school and reported abuse in the home. The educator reported it, and a case was put together on the domestic violence in the home. And for whatever reason, that district attorney did not file charges.
And how long ago was this again, Roberta?
This was in 2023.
Okay.
So just like we're seeing across the state, we have district attorneys who are picking and choosing who they're going to file charges on. Instead of, you break the law and you think, you're going to get charged, or you think these people that are breaking the law are going to get charged. Yeah. They're picking and choosing. And so what people need to remember this election cycle is you elect that district attorney. And if he's not, or she is not prosecuting even the little crimes, I'm telling you right now, little crimes, if somebody comes to your house and breaks into your work truck and steals your livelihood and your district attorney doesn't feel like that's a crime that should be prosecuted, you need to find another district attorney. Because even the little crimes, if you commit a crime, it needs to be prosecuted. So that's what happened.
Let me ask you a quick question. I have been hearing, and I can't put my finger on it, but I've been hearing that there have been a whole lot of DAs that have been appointed by Stitt instead of allowing them to go to an election. Is that true?
What I know is in Pottawatomie County, we do have a appointed district attorney. And the reason why we have an appointed district attorney is we elected a district attorney. And I mean, I don't want to put conspiracy theories out there or anything, but 3 days after his election, he was mysteriously found dead. But, it's a terrible thing. And so for 4 years, we've had an appointed district attorney that nobody voted in. And so he was appointed by Governor Stitt. And I'm hearing that across the state as well. For whatever reason, they're stepping down. But you have to remember when it comes to district attorneys and judges in the state of Oklahoma is you have to look at their pay. The pay for public servants is so low. So in order to be a district attorney or a judge in the state of Oklahoma, you have to be a lawyer. And any good lawyer will make 3 or 4 times what we're paying our district attorneys or our judges. And so there has to be 2 things in order to be good at that job. You have to be ready to retire. You already have a retirement set up, or you have to have a heart for public service. Otherwise, all of your district attorneys and all of your judges will be failed attorneys who cannot make a living at being an attorney.
That's correct.
That's what we get.
Mm-hmm. And assistant district attorneys tend to be the very youngest coming out of law school that weren't offered a job in a firm, and they go into the district attorney's office to sort of cut their chops and get some things on their resume. So, okay, so Roberta, I want to go back just a little bit here because so that people know, originally when this story about Ty Burns that also involves Representative Chris Kennedy, when this broke, we were told, or the media said, that there was an incident of domestic violence in November of last year, and then there was another in the spring of this year. So this new revelation that just came to light has not been reported. And I will tell you, I do know, and you can cover, I'm going to have you sort of cover the initial reporting and the legislation that's actually involved there. But one thing I was able to find out is that it was actually a Sheriff Nick Mahoney doing the right thing who took those charges, took the information that the children of Ty Burns provided to the school district wanting help because they were suffering from some domestic violence at home. And because nothing was happening because, and this is what's reported, that the DA there at the time, which would have been Laura Austin Thomas, was a personal friend or an associate of Burns. So nothing was happening with those charges. And I'm told that Sheriff Nick Maloney sort of went over the heads of these people to do the right thing and got that information into the hands of one of our state senators, asking that state senator to bring that information to the Attorney General for charges. Okay, so here's where we're coming full circle, because Roberta's going to tell you the story of how the Attorney General actually did handle this, but not at all in the way that the sheriff trying to bring justice for this family was trying to accomplish.
Right. So we've gone full circle now. So now we know the Attorney General knows in 2023 that Ty Burns has a history of domestic violence. And this is important because in the state of Oklahoma, you kind of get a get out of jail free card on your first offense. It's a misdemeanor. You have to do domestic violence classes. And usually you're put on a suspended sentence, you're put on probation, and you're told not to do it again. And so in 2023, that's what should have happened with Ty Burns. Instead, it was swept under the rug. And in 2024, we know that this happened again. However, it was not reported. The family didn't report it. And so in April of 2025, we do know that that incident was reported. But what we see is on August 28th of this year, and this is how this came to attention, Non-Doc posted an article, and we know that Ty Burns was taken into court. He was arraigned and he was sentenced all in the same day. This is highly unusual. Usually for domestic violence, you go through an arraignment, you go through, you have a trial, it's months and months and months of all of this. However, on August 28th, he was arraigned and he was sentenced, and a deal was already struck with the Attorney General's office. And then we have to ask ourselves, why does the Attorney General have this case in the first place? The Attorney General shouldn't be concerning himself with county domestic violence, right?
Well, that's why you have elected DAs.
District attorneys. So we do know that the district attorney on this case for Pawnee County, he recused himself on this case. And typically what happens is when a district attorney recuses himself, either another district attorney in that office or a district attorney from a neighboring county will take the case. Never the Attorney General. The Attorney General never takes the case. And so that was very suspicious. And then, of course, on the same day, August 28th, when they got to court, Ty Burns got this, just this nice plea deal. And there were 3 counts. All 3 counts. Count 1 was the domestic violence situation that happened in November of 2024.
That was the one where he tried to gouge her eyes out.
Tried to gouge his wife's eye out.
Okay.
Count 2 was the domestic violence situation that happened in April of this year. And count 3 was the abuse on his daughter. So in April of this year, him and his wife got into an argument over his daughter. And the argument turned, a lot of screaming. What we know by the OSBI report is there was a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming, and daughter calls grandma. And so grandma comes over, the daughter gets scared. She jumps in grandma's van and tells grandma to go. She's scared. Grandma goes, and Ty Burns chases grandma and daughter down and essentially runs them down, runs them off the road, and takes his daughter back. And so that's what count 3 is. And this plea deal that he made with the Attorney General's office is that they'll make all 3 of these misdemeanors. He will serve a year sentence on each one to run concurrent, and he'll do a 52 weeks domestic violence class.
Hang on.
And that's That's
suspended
important.
sentences. They were
Yeah.
suspended. He will not go to jail.
Right.
Okay.
So what we do know is that state statute, I'm grabbing it right here because I don't want to mess it up. State statute says that your first offense is a misdemeanor if it's just, domestic violence. Your second offense, if you have a second offense within 10 years, that is an automatic felony. So we do know that in 2023, he had an offense. So the November case should have been a felony. But let's say they didn't know about the November case. Right, according to state law. Let's say they didn't know about it. The November domestic violence case, maybe that's his first offense that they know about. The April case is a second case. It should be a felony. But how they did it is they lumped it all together so that it looks like one incident. And state law is very clear on that. State law says that even if there is a history of domestic violence, that is still a felony. So there doesn't have to be charges. There doesn't have to be conviction. There just has to be a history there of 2 or more incidences, including the incident in question, the incident you're being charged with now. So automatically he should have had a felony for the abuse. And then also state law says that any kind of assault and battery on a minor is an automatic felony. So what we know digging into this case is the district attorney, the original district attorney who recused himself, he asked OSBI to investigate this case. And so from all of the investigation that I have done into this case, the first, any kind of mention of DHS is from OSBI. The OSBI file says that the OSBI agent is who contacted DHS. We all know in the state of Oklahoma, everybody is a mandatory reporter, and domestic violence in the presence of a minor is an automatic DHS referral. And that doesn't mean
say that one more time.
Domestic violence in the presence of a minor is an automatic DHS referral. And what that means is, the definition of that is, if a minor can see the domestic violence or hear the domestic violence, it is an automatic DHS referral.
And that is statutorily the definition, within the definition of child abuse and neglect in the state of Oklahoma.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so what we know is a DHS referral was never even made until OSBI got involved. From what I can tell, DHS was never involved until OSBI got involved, and OSBI is who contacted DHS. So you have all these mandatory reporters. Nobody contacted DHS. Nobody contacted DHS in 2023. Or maybe they did. We don't know because DHS won't tell us. Mm-hmm. But there were no charges in 2023. And so that's where we're at right now.
So can I add to this, Roberta? So we yes. know in 2023 that the knowledge of those crimes got all the way to the Attorney General's office.
Yes.
We know that the Attorney General knew about that in 2023. So now, Roberta, let's talk about not just that standing legislation that you said, but what happened in the state legislative session last session involving this. So Ty Burns is represented in court by Chris Kennedy as his attorney. Chris Kennedy is a sitting Oklahoma House of Representatives member. He's also a very powerful member in that he's advisor to the Speaker of the House. So he's sort of right-hand man to Speaker Kyle Hilbert. During the last session, a piece of legislation went through that has some pretty ironic timing here, given the leadership of the legislature. It basically put together the conditions for this sweetheart deal that we see with Ty Burns. So if you think about it, he got in trouble in November. In February, this bill comes up in the legislature, and it says, for first-time offenders, only the Attorney General can grab a case and sort of downgrade this and work toward services and suspended sentences rather than truly prosecuting it. So that bill looks suspiciously crafted to help Ty Burns. It makes it through because, as Jason Murphy has written about so in such detail and with such knowledge, if something is tagged with leadership on a bill, there are a lot of green buttons in voting. They know it's going through. They know the powers that be are going to shove it through. If you fight it, you're going to get retaliation, particularly if you're a Republican, you're going to get retaliation. They may even want to primary you out if you start going against their particular bills. So this bill goes all the way through the legislature, passes, goes to the governor's desk. And during that moment, when the governor finally found his veto pen, and he vetoed a bunch of legislation this time, and he said specifically about this bill, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I don't think we need to lessen protections for women and children when it comes to domestic abuse. I'm not signing that veto. Well, it goes back. And if you'll remember the last crazy night of the legislative session,
when so many of them were drunk on the floor. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes. So the drunken pen overrode this. The vote that night overrode this and brought this into law. And this appears to be the mechanism by which the attorney general stepped in and took the case. He was able to walk into the one and only hearing with a plea deal under his arm and arraign this person, sentence them, do it all within one session, which is unheard of.
Well, let me mention something really fast, because after what Roberta said, I find this to be really kind of, well, I'm not exactly sure what I would call it, but this is, as you can see, this is Twitter, X. This is Oklahoma Attorney General Gentner Drummond's comment. This was what after the Ty Burns affair. As Attorney General, I uphold and enforce the law. Now listen to what he's saying, without fear or favor. If you do not like the fact that Rep. Burns was only charged with the misdemeanor, then petition your legislature and the government to change the law. There was no legitimate justification for a felony charge in this case under current Oklahoma law. And what interests me about what his statement is it directly conflicts to what you just said was the law, Roberta. Am I wrong? Did I miss something?
No, you are correct. And so we don't need, and this is what I've said for years, and this is what I keep parroting, we don't need new laws in the state of Oklahoma. We need people to uphold the laws we already have, the existing laws. And so something that's important that I want to go back to the bill on, and that bill is House Bill 1273. That bill went through the Judiciary Oversight Committee, and we know that Representative Kennedy sits on that committee. Now, why Representative Kennedy is important is because Ty Burns hired Representative Kennedy as his legal counsel. So Kennedy is a lawyer. Kennedy served in the Oklahoma National Guard as a JAG lawyer. I had 2 run-ins with him during my military career. They were not nice run-ins. Kennedy's not a nice person if you've ever met him in person. But he sits on the Judiciary Committee. And so in March, this bill goes before that committee. Kennedy is representing Ty Burns. He votes yes on this bill. And let me talk about what this bill does. What this bill does is it reduces the amount of domestic violence classes from 52 weeks down to 26 weeks. If it's very important, this is the important part. If the abuser takes responsibility for their actions and shows that they want to change their actions. And so that part's important because we know that our Attorney General, he put out a press release. And he put that out on August 28th, right after the hearing. And this is what he says. He says, these are serious charges. I am encouraged that the representative has taken responsibility for his actions and will receive counseling under terms of his sentence. He was setting him up to receive the reduced sentence under the Attorney General's new program. And so
Well,
we know,
I wonder how many people that aren't involved in the legislature get that deal.
No,
I didn't get the deal. I haven't, and
I
Tyburn,
you haven't been running around. I don't think.
no, I don't
people, though.
come home and beat my family either.
yes.
I mean,
no, it's our leaders have covered each other.
yeah, this is just, that's
They're
so obvious.
Untouchable. So Roberta, also tell her a little bit more in that bill, what it talks about those eligible for this sweetheart deal under the new bill and first offenses.
So your first offense, the first offense is the domestic violence courses, the 52 weeks of domestic violence courses. And then it goes on to say that if you take responsibility for your actions and are willing to change, not to be an abuser anymore, then you qualify. If this is your first offense, you qualify for the reduced sentence of 62 weeks or 26 weeks.
So how did they manage to get Ty Burns eligible for this special legislation and reduction if he had a November and an April offense?
That is a good question, because what they did was they tried to lump it all into one plea deal, to one court case, and make it look like this was his first offense, even though there are two separate dates in this court case. This court case, count 1 is for the November incident. Count 2 is for the April incident. So these are two different incidences. You cannot go out and murder people on the same. You can't go out and just murder people and then be charged like this is your first offense if you're a serial killer. That doesn't work.
Right.
And so that's how they got away with it. And Representative Kennedy, Ty Burns, and the Attorney General all knew what they were doing in this case. And we see that there has been no accountability for Representative Kennedy, and there's been no accountability for the Attorney General. But I want to say this, the Oklahoma Attorney General, he got pretty cocky with his statement by saying, if you don't, if you don't like the fact that he was only charged with the misdemeanor, then petition your legislator and governor to change the law.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was pretty snarky. I mean, but then again, let's look who we're dealing with. Then don't forget, he told Mick Rosado, I'm a grown ass attorney general. You don't have to vote for me. I don't care if you vote for me. So this isn't anything new for the AG. Our AG has a mouth and he uses it frequently. But I think particularly when you're dealing with an abusive situation, Ty Burns isn't a small dude. I mean, look him up. This is not a small dude. And it's just shock. Why did I say shocking? I mean, we live in Oklahoma anymore. This has got to be, like you said, Katie, is this a corrupt state or what?
It certainly is. And when people are immune from criminal prosecution, and you're talking about the highest sitting official in our criminal justice system doing this. I guess we can hope and pray he gets over these tendencies by the time he's governor, but we should be extremely concerned. Extremely.
Right. And something I want to point out on this entire case is that I don't have Ty Burns' statement because he resigned, and I don't have his statement in front of me, but he made reference to his military career and some PTSD and some TBI. And that's something that, as everybody knows, I'm a veteran. I served in the same brigade as both Ty Burns and Chris Kennedy. We all served in that same brigade together. And I don't recall ever meeting Ty Burns. Like I told you before, I've met Chris Kennedy. And we know that Attorney Gentner Drummond, he is a veteran. He's an Air Force veteran. And what I want to tell you, as somebody who utilizes the VA system, they spend billions of dollars on mental health care a year. And every time I go in there, I've got to take an assessment. Do I feel this way? Do I feel that way? there are so many resources for our veterans to get mental health, and especially wartime veterans to get any kind of mental health that they needed. Had the case in 2023 been prosecuted, Burns would have been able to receive all of the help. His family would have been able to receive counseling. He would have been able to receive counseling. So you have two veterans who dropped the ball on another fellow soldier when they should have been out there getting him the help that he needed, getting his family the help that they needed. And so across the state, we hear all the time that there's not enough mental health services. There's not enough mental health services. For our veterans, there is an overwhelming amount of mental health services. And if they can't serve you here in the state of Oklahoma, they will ship you to another state that can help you. And I mean, they will pay for it. And so it's important to see that the veterans, that there are so much resources out there, and they didn't even help their fellow veteran, if that's what the case is.
You're correct. And a district level district attorney did not protect that family, that woman and her children. We have a sitting attorney general who back in 2023 and now is failing to protect those people. Super concerning.
Well, I think that, but I think that's huge. I mean, you have a child that was pursued while she was with her grandmother in this minivan. You had this child that was pursued by her father, who tried to run the minivan off the road. I mean, I'm saying these things for people who maybe just haven't heard the whole story or haven't read this. This wasn't him wagging his finger in her face and saying, you know, hey, quit it yourself. It wasn't that.
Well, and we know that
he tried to gouge out her eyes and run his own daughter off the road. And then he took responsibility by saying, hey, I've got PTSD. And yet he'd been doing this before, hadn't taken advantage that we know of any kind of mental health treatment. I mean, at what point do you just go, look, you don't get to say, you know, hey, I'm a cop. Hey, I'm in the military. I get to, you know, I get a get out of jail card free because of X. I mean, I don't think that's right. And I don't think normal people would see that.
No. And anytime that I see a statement, there's key phrases that anytime I see a statement and the words, you know, PTSD and things like that are thrown around, as a veteran, that's like nails on a chalkboard to me, because it's like talking points. It's talking points to say, I'm not taking responsibility for my actions. Instead, I'm blaming it on something. And there are plenty of, you know, millions and millions of veterans across the state, wartime veterans across the state who have PTSD, who have traumatic brain injury. They are not abusing their spouses. They're not abusing their children. And you have Ty Burns, who's a former police officer. He's a military veteran. He is a former educator. He's a former coach. He's all of the things that we put on a pedestal. And we're not holding him accountable. And so that's a big problem. And I want to say that for one of his children to come forward in 2023 and report abuse in the home, we know that working with other abuse, that statistically, because none of the trusted adults in that child's life listened to that report, that child will not ever come forward again. And it had to be really bad for a child to go to school and disclose abuse at school. And so, and we also know from the OSBI report that the daughter that was being chased down by her own father recorded it. And the OSBI agent says that the daughter was screaming, he's going to kill us. He's going to kill us. I mean, she was afraid for her life from her dad.
So
but
let me
it's a
say,
misdemeanor.
well, let me say this too. I do want to give some credit where credit's due here, because sometimes we think the whole system is corrupted. There are always good people who are trying to help, and they seem to be stymied from those above. So if you think about this child made a disclosure at school, there was likely a teacher who took that to administration. We know that that administration must have notified law enforcement because the sheriff became involved. And it was only when the sheriff was thwarted by a DA who had a conflict of interest here and a personal relationship with Mr. Burns that he felt like he had to go over his head. So there were a lot of people doing the right thing. And we can see how if you have one bad apple at the top of the pile, everyone is endangered.
Good point. I mean, that is a great point, because you're right. We do want to say, thank you to the ones that are doing the right thing, because I can imagine that sheriff, somebody's trying to, hand his ass to him right now because he didn't do what everybody else wanted him to. He's not playing the game.
Right.
So,
God
bless him.
God bless him. Correct.
Well, and I mean, it's important to know, I go after the DAs pretty hard, but it's important to know, our police officers are out here and they're taking bad people off the streets. They're investigating. And ultimately, it's up to your district attorney whether or not charges are filed.
Right.
OSBI cannot file charges. Your police officers cannot file charges. I cannot file charges on anybody. Ultimately, it's the district attorney who has to file those charges, or the attorney general. And so I know that that's kind of, that's been an issue for law enforcement here. I hear it from law enforcement across the state, is they're out here taking the bad guys off the streets. And then the district attorney comes up with deals like this. And these district attorneys are not the ones that show up at those houses. They're not the ones that show up when the wife is bloody and beaten, or the kids are bloody and beaten. They're not the ones that listen to all of that. They all, and so it's disheartening for our police officers who are doing the right thing, or educators that are doing the right thing. So it's frustrating for everybody.
Correct.
Well, I wanted to go back to something Julia said. I've never seen that happen all in one day.
No.
And I worked in courtrooms for 15 years. I think that's important to get that out. And then Janice got a great question. Have other legislators been fired for abuse in the past? I mean, where are we with that?
Well, what was interesting.
And here's another point. Running the van off the road, he should be charged for attempted murder, basically. It's just insane.
That is really a good point. So one thing that stood out to me that we haven't talked about is that in his initial statements, Ty Burns, when this scandal broke, he said that he would be stepping down from his committee position. So it was almost like that was part of the prearranged PR as well, right? And then when the public pressures, particularly from the grassroots and from people on social media, so this is voters and grassroots people saying, no, we're not putting up with it. Then within about 48 hours, he did step down from his position as a representative. But in doing so, his comment talked about how he would stay on an extra month and that he was going to get his interim study, which is on PTSD, in a good place before he walked away in a month. I don't know if it's disingenuous to start an interim study about PTSD after you have been arrested for or interacted with the police over your own domestic abuse issues. And in the background, your fellow legislator buddies are pushing legislation to get you off the hook.
Well, and I want to make this point though, too, Katie. You can't just go and get an interim study like that. You have to apply for it. So this happened even probably significantly before all of this actually came into play.
That's a really good point. There is a process there. You don't just get to request it and everybody shows up. And that
so can you see that the possibility of him trying to get the interim study while all of these legislators and people were working to help him in the background, so that when he stepped down from his committee, but oh, I have this interim study on PTSD, somehow that helps. All of this stinks to high heaven to me. Stinks.
It does.
Well, and I think that you could probably also say he asked for the interim study to maybe help with his case a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
and Catherine says Drummond's response to all of us wanting him to publicly call for Burns' resignation said all I needed to know. So flippant, so arrogant. And Lisa said he shouldn't have been given the choice to resign. He should have gone straight to prison.
Jenny, how many times have you and I, related to some of my reporting on all kinds of things that shouldn't be happening around the state, talked about conflicts of interest? It is perhaps the number one problem within our government at every level. They never address conflicts of interest.
And I want to say on the conflict of interest, in the military, that's what I did. I did military contracts, with people. And even the illusion of a conflict of interest, even if there wasn't one, even the illusion that there could potentially be a conflict of interest was so forbidden. I remember I had a contract with a local hotel. We had soldiers that would come in every month and I had to get them a hotel. And a girl started managing the commercial account there. And it was a girl I went to grade school with. In grade school, I hadn't talked to her in 20, 25 years. I had to cancel the contract with that hotel and go find another hotel because she came to the office one day and visited with me. My superior seeing that we were pretty friendly and knew each other. And I mean, they made me cancel the contract and everything. I mean, that's how serious it was in the military. Somebody that I knew 25 years ago, because it could be an illusion of a conflict of interest.
Wow.
And here we have this Senate Pro Tem saying, well, we'd never get anything done if we looked at conflicts of interest,
Exactly. Yes.
Senator Paxton absolutely did say that during the
education.
Michael Tinney.
Yes.
Who is the husband of the founder of POE, which is one of the state's education teachers unions. But there's no conflict there. Tinney even said in that committee hearing that he would be leaning on his son, who is a lobbyist who also works for that organization, because he had a great understanding of the law. He would be leaning on the people at the POE about policy because they really know about all of this. Really, and I feel like sincerely not even recognizing how much that boxes out the voice of parents in education. It's exactly the battle we've been fighting.
Yeah.
So very interesting. Okay, do we have any other comments? We do have another topic to cover, as if this wasn't enough.
Well, let's go on. We did have some other comments, but I think let's just move on because we're already 43 minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Let's put this one up. Okay. It will share here in just a second, or will it? Add to stage. I'll get there. Okay. So another sign of corruption has to do with this grand jury petition that has been filed in Payne County. And ever since, we've had revelations of nothing but malfeasance coming out. It's shocking. So this story actually went up on September 5th. And it talks about Charles McCall and also Speaker Hilbert being named in this grand jury petition. And so the grand jury petition specifically names a lot of folks, which I'll show you, but it's talking about how DHS, corrupt courts, law enforcement, and these layers of what's supposed to be oversight for DHS, including the legislature, are not doing their jobs. And they're stepping over families and families' rights to raise and parent their own children. And it's gotten frankly dangerous. So let me just run through really quickly. We actually, on your program, Jenny, while you were away and we missed you, I interviewed Daryl Doherty on the 27th of August. And he gave us, a lot of people knew he had the petition out there, but people didn't really know his story, that over 10 years he's been trying to protect his child from a former spouse who has some serious mental health issues. There's been both sexual and physical abuse, not just related to his now 11-year-old son, but related to her other children, other marriages, those kinds of things. So we interviewed Daryl, and he told us his story, which is it's amazing that the bias in the court, no matter what the circumstances are, and I'm not going to say every court, but in this particular court in Payne County, if you are a male, white, Christian person who has great emotional control and makes your case and files all of the appropriate things that you should, it will get you nowhere. We're in a very funny place with our progressive courts where there's protectiveness for some, and there's vindictiveness against groups before you even walk into the court. So Doherty told us his story, and he is one of the petitioners. Actually, the grand jury petition was filed by a group called Oklahomans for Children's Rights. And it really was a bipartisan thing. There were 2 Democrat and 2 Republican legislators, some current, some former state legislators who were on that with Daryl Doherty under the umbrella of Oklahomans for Children's Rights, which is something they formed as a corporation. Okay. This grand jury was assigned to Judge Jason Reese, and you're going to hear a lot about him. He is former general counsel to Governor Kevin Stitt. He was in the executive office of the governor up until September of 2021. Then he was appointed as a district court judge, okay, in Logan and Payne counties. So on the day following our interview, Doherty was arrested twice. And I think a lot of people know about this. Once there was one judge that put out a warrant for his arrest, and he turned himself in with a bondsman and was bonded out because the sheriff's department, I'm told, thinks all of this is hogwash against Daryl Doherty, and they think it's him being targeted by the system. And they were very helpful in helping him through the process within a couple of hours. Everything that Doherty put out there to try and handle this correctly and legally was ignored. He wanted protective orders for his son, who was saying he did not feel safe to go to the other parent's home. He begged for a hearing and filed, and a hearing should have been given within 24 hours, was never given. The child's voice was absolutely silenced. Instead, Daryl Doherty, for filing, was arrested. Then he bonded out, and he had seen the Supreme Court. He went to the Supreme Court the day of his arrest in the morning and asked for some help from them. And they sent a mediator down, and that mediator walked through his case, said, absolutely understand your case. I'm going to take this to one of the justices. And he really hoped that by going over their head, this could be avoided. But as you'll see, just 3 days earlier, Chief Justice Rowe had visited the Payne County Court and basically pinned a medal on their chest and said that they were doing a really great job. So if anyone's waiting for the Supreme Court to step in on this and make it right, I wouldn't hold your breath. So Doherty, on the first arrest, this is the gentleman, Nikki Leach, who ordered that arrest. And Daryl ended up out on a $7,800 bond. Then despite his filings, and if you ever have time to go into the case, his actual divorce case that's been going on forever, it is almost unreal how Daryl Doherty has taken this on pro se after he could no longer afford the attorney. Daryl is a record company owner. He is a mechanic from Stillwater, Oklahoma, and he's done an amazing job. He's almost teaching the court about law.
Well, can I say something really fast?
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes you hear stories about this and you think, you hear the actual person talk, and you might even think, oh my goodness, maybe they could have done something. You know what I mean? You just hear them talk. I've heard Daryl and Daryl's mother pleading his case now on Facebook. Daryl's mother is, oh my goodness, she speaks well. She's got perfect grammar. And I mean, these people are not, I don't know what to say. These people, both Daryl and his mom, I mean, they're well spoken. They obviously care very much for this child. These are not people that are just doing this to try to get attention or to cause some problem. They are eminently believable. And I just urge people to find Daryl Doherty on Facebook and listen to him. You'll just be horrified.
I completely agree. And in my interviews with him, he did say to me, and I don't think this wasn't on your program, but while I was interviewing him, even listening to everything that had gone on with his former spouse, including she left and went off with other men to other states, he was left with his child and her child from something else. He was coordinating with other fathers to make sure all these kids are safe. And he's very calm about explaining this. She stole his truck. He reports she stole his truck with another man at some point. He's very calm about it. Never did he sort of bar her from seeing their son. And even up to the very end, he said to me, listen, I don't want you to get the wrong idea. I want my son to know his mother. That is his mother, you know, a God ordained relationship. He said, I want it to happen safely. Still after all of this, which I found he has more emotional control than almost anybody I've ever met. So you're correct. So the second arrest came, and it came under Judge Reese, that I told you was the former executive attorney for Governor Stitt, appointed. And it was a not filed warrant. So it's basically not even out there. You don't present the person with a warrant when you arrest them, which, looking into this, I'm kind of shocked that we still have this here in the United States of America. And it involved these multiple charges of child stealing, obstructing officers. You can see it here. And that judge put $1 million bond on Daryl Doherty, which is staggering. Daryl went to a soccer game with his 5-year-old son, his younger son from his current marriage, and was arrested there in Stillwater at a kid's soccer game. Now, the whole probable cause affidavit for the warrant was based on an affidavit by an officer of the Stillwater Police Department named Jeremy Rager. So Doherty reports he got sideways with the Stillwater Police Department, not intentionally, but that he was on the city council at one point and they were dealing with budgetary issues. And he got sideways with the police department and ever since has felt persecuted about that. So Jeremy Rager puts in this affidavit saying he's broken the conditions of his custody agreement. He needs to be picked up. And that is notarized by another officer who happened to be Cody Manuel, who happened to be at the very soccer game that knew where Doherty would be because his kid played on that soccer league and was playing against him. So this is just very coordinated sort of small town stuff and not a small town. And you'll see Doherty documents everything. He documents it in the court case. He documents it on his social media. It's meticulous. So just moving on to let you know, his son checked himself into a Payne County Youth Services shelter. He saw this going down. His dad was being arrested. He was afraid to be taken back, and he went to this shelter. Now, under law, nobody can touch the safety of that shelter. So while Daryl is arrested and kept, I think they were very much trying to keep him over the holiday weekend. That was the big lesson with this massive bond amount on him. He says he got a late night cell visit and he was informed that they could not take his kid out of the shelter. But if he as a parent agreed to let them take the child and give the child back to the parent that the child was afraid of and was calling abusive, that they would lower his bond to $250,000. So Doherty reports that he told them in no uncertain terms, not going to happen. So an order was made then by Judge Leach this is the order. to remove the child from the shelter. I can't get anyone to say to me whether this is a lawful move. It feels like a very unlawful move. Doherty believes that it's a very unlawful move, but they took him from the shelter. They gave him to his biological mother, and Doherty has not heard from him since. So this child who was saying, I'm not safe where you're sending me, was forced to go there anyway. So we should all keep that family in our prayers. So then, out of nowhere, even after telling them to step off, he's not going to put his son in harm's way, no matter what they say. They went ahead and lowered the bond to $250,000, which is still absolutely egregious for trumped up charges. I mean, we have murderers on ankle monitors at home awaiting trial in Oklahoma. I know that. I'm covering one, and here this man has to put up $25,000 to get out of jail. Okay, so that's where we were with Daryl Doherty. But at the same time, all of this is so tied to that grand jury petition asking for investigation into all of the agencies that are supposed to keep kids safe in the state. Senator Randy Gentner was one of the petitioners who signed that petition. And named in the petition were a whole bunch of people. This is everyone specifically named in a petition. So this is unusual. There were people from OKDHS. There were people from the Commission on Children and Youth. It's supposed to be oversight for that agency. The OSBI. There's a law firm in here that is very suspect when it comes to hiding cases of what's happening there. We have judges. We have judges in Oklahoma County, Payne County. We also have former Speaker Charles McCall and current Speaker Kyle Hilbert. So if you think about the oversight responsibility that lands on the legislature when it comes to our state agencies, there's a lot happening there. The Attorney General's office, specifically Deputy Attorney General Geiger, and at the Oklahoma Supreme Court, named a justice. So this is a big deal. The charges in the petition are steep: conspiracy, collusion, failing to report, silencing victims, failing to recuse or address conflicts of interest, racketeering. The list of charges is huge. So that kind of thing could make a politician pretty nervous, correct?
Well, only one that might have something to worry about, maybe.
Correct. What the petition says about former Speaker McCall and current Speaker Hilbert is that they colluded in, I quote, colluded to commit crimes against children, failed to report crimes against children, and intentionally interfered in a law enforcement investigation. So those are the charges. Now I want to tell you a little bit about what's happening since then. So this is Senator Gentner, and he was on the petition. Bradley signed the petition that we need to look into this. Things are happening to Oklahoma families. He actually went out, and we know now he collected as many as 51 is the number that we're getting, petitions. So he had folks either come to him, come to his office, or he was at another location. He walked them through the petition and had them sign the petition, which would indicate that he had pretty intimate knowledge of exactly what was in the petition. He signed it in the first place. Well, he came forward then and said he wanted off the petition. So he files with the court and says, and I'm paraphrasing, hey, I didn't know that we were naming specific people in here. These folks are really great public servants. I would never do that. I'm going to retract myself from this petition. I don't know, Jenny, you've got that look of consternation on your face. What would cause someone to take their name off of a petition that they were already collecting signatures for?
Well, I'm hoping to hear from Dr. Gentner. I've actually reached out to him because I would like to know. I would like to have an idea why.
He'll probably be on the same podcast as Ron Miller.
Sorry.
That's gonna be a long one.
Was that my cat meowing in the background?
Yeah.
Let's let Jenny off the hook. Okay, so moving on So that was on August 22nd. The Senator Grillner said, changed my mind. Sorry, not what I thought it was. And on August 28th, Charles McCall pops in and files a motion to basically be an interested party in this. What we have to make clear is a grand jury petition is the public's last-ditch effort when its government has gone off the rails. The government has no control over this. This is us through the courts making a petition to look into the government. Nonetheless, he came in on August 28th, and then on with some high-powered attorneys that likely, given he was a past speaker, so he's probably paying for that. And then on September 2nd, they made another filing to quash the whole petition. They want this whole thing thrown out, right? McCall's original filing said, basically, he's very upset with Justin Humphreys, who's a petition signer, that he didn't come to him. They worked together for years. Why in the world would he not have notified me? And again, there's no responsibility for any petitioner or the court to notify these folks that there's a grand jury petition. So then on the 2nd, September 2nd, McCall, through his attorneys, wants to get rid of the whole petition. That's his motion. On the same day, remember, this court would not give Daryl Doherty the emergency hearing so that his son could be heard ever. They should have within 24 hours, but ever. But on the same day that Charles McCall motions to quash the petition, a hearing is set for September 18th to hear his motion. So the powerful here are definitely getting preferential treatment. Which is kind of interesting because Charles McCall is running for governor and saying that he is a champion for parents' rights and, quote, puts our faith, families, and liberties first. So this is a little bit of a juxtaposition. Now I will tell you, Kyle Hilbert.
Hold on. Hold on. So Charles McCall is running for governor.
Correct.
Gentner Drummond is running for governor.
Correct.
Gentner Drummond charged and adjudicated Ty Burns in one day of misdemeanors after trying to run his child off the road in her grandmother's car and trying to gouge his wife's eyes out. And Charles McCall is running for governor, and he says that he's a proven conservative that puts Oklahoma first and should be trusted to lead again, when he deliberately tries to stop a man from getting his child out of an abusive situation. Did I cover it?
You did cover it, and further is trying to quash the public's ability to investigate the agencies that are involved in collusion when it comes to children. We're talking about children within family and domestic cases. We're talking about children within DHS involvement or state custody. This is a lot of families, and this has been building for so long. Here's what I need people to understand too. This is not the first grand jury petition about DHS or about corrupt courts working with DHS. We had another one. I will say Justin Humphreys has been a champion of this issue on this issue. There was another grand jury petition that made it through. It got what it needed. It was supposed to be assigned. Do you know what happened to it? They never gave it a judge. They just said, no, even though this is the process, we're not doing it. And that's where it's at. And that's how we keep going from one grand jury petition to another to a third, because they won't look at this. It's very clear that the public is not putting up with this anymore. And now we have not one speaker, but two speakers entering that effort. Kyle Hilbert on September 5th. He hired McAfee and Taft out of Oklahoma City to represent him. And now he wants this all stopped as well. Now, who's paying for that, Jenny? Who's paying for the high-powered attorneys in Oklahoma City to come squash the people's right to investigate their own government?
Well, we would have to see, but technically I would think it would be the taxpayers.
Yes. He's
So let me interrupt something because there's some breaking news I've just been getting. So Charlie Kirk has been shot on the campus of Utah State University where he was going to speak today. And it does appear that he is alive, but he has been hospitalized.
That's stunning. That's stunning. And the parallels to where Oklahoma is headed, with a lot of the policies that are being pushed on us and where Utah finds itself, are huge.
I mean, it's like we were talking about this morning. It's bizarre. I feel like the world is literally like winding up or something. I mean, it is so incredibly corrupt and disgusting and full of satanic BS that I can't even believe we have people who have no clue about what's going on.
I agree. Well, to wrap this up, now there actually is a hearing. The courts came back. This is one of the most interesting moves I've seen. The court did come back with all this commotion, having to make a motion, and finally answered Doherty's many motions. They agreed with McCall, and they said that the petitioners hadn't done it correctly. They said that this group that filed the petition under this one umbrella had to be pulled apart, and people had to file as individual petitioners. So now they're trying to single you out by name for what I believe is persecution. The result was that only Daryl Doherty and Justin Humphrey ended up refiling. Daryl Doherty said this is unconstitutional at both the state and federal levels, and made some really valid arguments about that. The court is not listening to anyone but the high-powered politicians who have entered into this case. So they had to refile, and that actually shaved days off the days that they were able to collect signatures. They're doing everything they can to thwart this effort so that we can't look into our state government. And after having just testified in front of the Criminal and Judiciary Committee about DHS and listening to all of the testimony in Gabe Woolley's interim study,
yes,
everyone knows that this grand jury needs to happen.
I mean,
is this a corrupt state or what?
I would like to reiterate that the grand jury process is there for us to keep our government in check. But you have elected officials that are trying to take away your right to do this. And my hope is that people see this and people start voting judges out. They start voting representatives out. 2026 has got to be the year that things get done. And this is only going to get worse, because we know that instead of plucking a bad apple out of an organization, DHS, out of a school, out of anything, they will double down and cover up. Why not just take the bad seed out and say, hey, we don't know what happened, he's a bad seed, and move on? But they won't. They'll double down. I mean, they'll just double down every single time. And I don't understand. I've never understood that, even going through the ordeal that I went through. I've never really understood why you don't just pluck the bad seed out, why you spend so much time and effort defending instead of just getting rid of the rotten fruit.
Well, I've thought a lot about that, Roberta, and I think I have an answer for you.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I mean, people are people. I mean, we're human beings. There's nothing about us that's holy. The only way that we even become sort of like that is if we have a really great relationship with Jesus Christ. That's it. I mean, otherwise, we're really just pieces of garbage, clawing our way to the top, because that's all we care about is us. Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of people that are fallen people. And those people are so afraid of their own sins falling at their own feet that they're not going to extend themselves to help anybody else. Because what if? What if somebody finds out about this? What if somebody finds out about that? I think this whole state is just virtually corrupt at this point in time. And I really do believe that it's just a cover your ass syndrome. I think that's the next thing we need to come up with is CYAS, right? Quias.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a syndrome. These people will say legitimately, like Charles McCall, I love families and children, but I'm going to get an attorney and I'm going to stop these people from trying to help these kids. And I mean, how does it's completely nonsensical. You're speaking out of two sides of your mouth. It's literally insane.
It is.
Right. And so what people have to do in 2026 when they find their people to elect is you have to make sure that the person you're electing is on a good foundation and really look into those people. Because I'm going to tell you what, you can send out 1,000 mailers and it's not going to tell you anything you need to know that's important about a candidate.
No.
This
Spend
is
all the
sad.
money.
Lisa says we researched Oklahoma thoroughly before we moved here. Imagine how bad it may be in other states.
Correct. And so, Oklahoma, we say it over and over again, the only state in the country where every single county voted for the populist movement of Donald J. Trump 3 times. All 3 times he ran, all 77 counties. So people assume that this is a conservatively run state. Unfortunately, that means you don't get to win an office unless you're a conservative Republican. So we have so many people faking that on the postcards during the elections, and they unfortunately do it better than their authentic opponents. We are easily fooled. Burn the mailers, burn the postcards. You will learn nothing there but lies.
Well, and the other thing, we've talked about this on the show. I mean, I think all 3 of us have, but certainly, Katie, you and I have talked about it numerous times.
Mm-hmm.
People will vote for president and believe that that's it. Their job is done. Finish that job. Now everything's going to be okay. Ho, ho, ho. President Trump will take care of all of our problems. They have no idea that their problems start in the grass under their feet.
Yes, if you want to
their city councils, is it their school boards, is it their state school board? They don't care. So yes, it seems like we're a red state, but we can't be a red state because those people running out voting for president thinking they're done are done. They're going to football games, they're going to games, they're shopping, they're having a great time, they're Netflixing, and I mean they just don't, they're done once they've done that.
But again, I think that so many of those connections that connect the conditions of your individual community to politics are represented by the media, and the media stopped making those connections for so many years. If you want to fix the place where you live, really understand who's in your DA's race, really understand who the judges are and who's being elected. That is the biggest thing you can do. If you have children, run for the school board or sit your butt in the seat every time there's a school board meeting and your eyes will be opened. So I think there's a huge disconnect. They don't cover those things. And we go to the local rural newspapers. They've all been consolidated into these massive conglomerates that are run out of DC and the Beltway and Gannett. They all look the same online. They're not delivered anymore. They look exactly the same websites online if you go to all these different towns because it's exactly the same paper. They're not going to give you that information. So we have to work a lot harder to be truly informed about voting in our communities than we used to.
And I just want to parrot what Katie is saying, in that I tell people it's education. People are not educated. We went through several generations of folks that you didn't talk about politics, but everybody wants to talk about Donald Trump and everybody wants to wear the hat and say the things. But if you want change where you're at, your county commissioner, your city council, your school board, those people have the most control. Those are the people that can change your situation right now. Because if all the way at the state has to get involved, it's going to get messy. And you don't want the state in your business. And so if you want change where you sit, it has to be right now. It has to be those small things. And they're not small things. And if people understood the billions of dollars that go into our schools, if they understood the billions of dollars that our county commissioners are in charge of, the billions of dollars that our city commissioners, the municipalities are in charge of, the important decisions that these local judges and local DAs are making, those are the things that are going to affect you.
They are
100%. But I mean, we've got a huge audience on here again today. I don't know what's going on with you people. Wednesday, you must have just taken off today. It's like I've been on here for 5 hours. I'm ready to get off now. But I do appreciate the fact that everybody's been on today and everybody's been very active and everybody's been really paying attention. The absolute best thing, hands down, that you can do at this point in the year with 26 elections coming up, which are going to be a big dang deal. You have got to start sharing these podcasts far and wide. You've got to start really talking to people that you ordinarily wouldn't talk to. So you're at the gym with the kids. Hey, did you hear that thing about what's going on with Gentner Drummond, who's running for governor? I don't know that I want him after I heard that. I mean, pick just some topic and start talking about it. But until we get off of hey, did you see the Thunder game? We won. Yeah. I mean, until we get off of the surface entertainment garbage, which is ruining us all, this is going to continue to happen. So go out there, fight for your families, fight for this state, fight to get it back, because we've lost it, guys. I'm telling you, it's gone. It is gone under the blanket of corruption, and we've got to get it back. So ladies, thank you so much for being just willing to talk about this stuff, because so many people aren't even willing to talk about it.
Thanks for giving the platform and getting it out there. 2026 is very, very important. And Jenny, the visit started with a series called How to Steal the State. How to Steal a State. And it was about the corruption. It was about people faking that they have the voters' values to get into office, and then nosediving the plane on purpose, and covering for each other, circling the wagons, getting people out of indictments. This is not new. And this is not something we can ever stop fighting in a place like Oklahoma, where we have good people with good faith-filled values. We have to be eyes wide open all the time. They will never stop. We need a great governor.
Well, I hate to call it a day, but is this a corrupt state or what? Thanks for tuning in. And Guy, Roberta, and Katie, thank you so much for being with us. And thank you for what you do. Just so appreciate you. And thank you again, audience. You're the reason we're here, and you're just excellent. And thank you for all your comments today. And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again on Friday morning at 9 a.m. with Janice Danforth, who's going to be talking a little bit about what she went through in Bixby with Superintendent Rob Miller, who is also running for state superintendent. So tune in again at 9 a.m. on Friday morning. Thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Bye.